Welcome back to the Liberty Perspective. I'm Joe Marshall. Today I'm going to continue on with this the threats that the renewables, specifically solar and wind, and the scam of solar and wind presents to our republic. I'm going down through this. I'm going down through data that I dug into for your consideration. And we'll just get right back into this because I just want to get you the information as much as I can here. Let me see. There we go. There you go. And I'm kind of trying out a new thing with the sound. I backed the mic way off here. I don't know. It's out of the picture even. To the point I'm going to give it a try. We'll see how it works, and we'll go from there. I've been trying to work on my sound quality. It's been a mess, and I apologize. But it's a work in progress. It's just me. But anyways, we kind of just to kind of bring us up to date. We're going down through the RECs, which are renewable energy credits. Okay, renewable energy credits. We've been going over them. It's kind of it is a scam because these renewables, solar, wind, they're not just producing electricity and putting it on the grid. When they're connected, they're waiting up to a decade in some cases, anywhere from 5 years to, a decade or even more in some cases, because that's average, right? It could even get plugged in to the grid. But when they do get plugged into the grid, they're not just producing energy. They've got this other scam going that they call renewable energy credits, which represent the social and environmental value of the renewable energy that they produce or whatever, right? So, of course, you've got all these companies that are being mandated to prove that they are emissions compliant, that they are net zero compliant, because if you're going to play, then you got to pay, right? You got to play to pay. I mean, it's what a public-private partnership is. If you're going to be in the game, then you're going to have to pay your punk dues. That's all there is. And that's what these RECs are. Basically, they're just punk dues. You, as I explained in the last show on this, is that you could be a company using 100% of your power coming from coal, but as long as you go to a REC or go to one of these solar and wind projects and you buy a REC, which were kind of designed to finance it and boost the profitability of these things artificially. And so to incentivize these things, they came up with this REC program. It goes back, I don't know, a decade or more, but it's basically paper money, monopoly money that these guys made up. That these companies are forced to buy, and then they show them to the state. Look, I bought I use this many kilowatts of power from coal, but I bought the same amount of kilowatts of power from a solar plant wherever that's putting power on the grid someplace else. And if I buy the social and environmental value with these RECs, and that represents the same amount of power that I use from coal, then I have zero emissions. I'm actually zero emissions compliant, and I'm compliant to all the mandates on net zero emissions and everything else. So I can show that I don't have a carbon footprint, even though I'm using 100% of the fuel that I'm using for my company is coming from coal. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. But it is what it is, right? But it's a scam, and it's out there, and I didn't even really know about these things, and it's not like they put this stuff out there for everybody to know. It's out there, but you got to dig to find it. They're not going to tell you on the news, and if they do tell you on the news, that news report isn't going to get put out there for everybody to see to go viral. You know what I mean? But anyways, just to put that out there, this is kind of where we left off. Then I see. We talked about the nuclear option a little bit. I said, well, while these solar and winds are waiting for their connections to go on the grid, steadily closes in on the better part of a decade. And to get that average of the better part of a decade, they got to have a bunch of them waiting for a lot longer than that, right? Because they're averaging a lot less and a lot more. But anyways, Furthermore, given their inadequate and intermittent nature, industrial sprawl, consuming square miles of precious farmland and once pristine rural vistas they occupy, and the relatively low impact of innovations such as the recently imposed additional political mandate of nuclear option. Again, they're putting it out there. New York State is putting it out there, and I'm sure it isn't going to be just New York State, because the inability of these renewables to actually produce the amount of energy that is going to be needed for the future centralized planned society that the same progressivism has in store for us, they can't do it, so they got to go to nuclear. And that's been my big thing too, is that once they go to nuclear, it just makes all these solar panels and all these windmills obsolete. They don't need them. They can't produce the energy needed anyway, and that's why they're going to nuclear. So even if they wanted to get away from fossil fuels, whatever, and they went all nuclear, they wouldn't need these windmills and solar panels. But you think that they're going to stop putting them up? Do you think they're going to pull back on that? Say, well, we'll pull back on that. No, because there's that handful of their public-private partnership partners at the World Economic Forum. I ain't going to let them do that. I ain't going to let them do that. You would think that the government has the power over these businesses. Well, with government money coming from these businesses that that the World Economic Forum is kind of consisting of, right? It's kind of made up of these freaking big global businesses that are all tied up in this whole Green New Deal shit, right? All in this public-private partnership. It all comes out of the World Economic Forum. It's being pushed by the World Economic Forum, okay? But you would think that the governments would have sway over that because it's all government money that's funding it. But then again, you got to remember that it's the people who own the banks that own the banks of the world that are involved with the World Economic Forum, and these banks of the world they own our governments. They own our governments. So the bigger the circle gets that we take into consideration, the tighter it actually gets. The tighter that the hold that they have on everybody else and everything else. Okay, the government is providing the money for this stuff, but are they? Are they? Could they ever pay the money back? They're indebted. Every country in the all the countries that are involved with the United Nations, anyways, 160 or 190 or whatever it is countries. How many of those United Nations countries are involved in this Green New Deal? How many of those governments are indebted to the banks of the World Economic that are part of the World Economic Forum or involved with the new World Economic Forum that are pushing these policies? It all gets locked in. And just something to throw out there for your consideration. You know what I mean? You would think, but I don't know. Our governments are slaves to this, including New York State is a slave to their own progressivism, because their progressivism locks them into the world fascism and the World Economic Forum on a multitude of levels. Just putting it out there. But anyways, I got this. Meanwhile, the colossal centrally planned fascistic government projects sit idly by, waiting to be connected to the grid. That's what they're just sitting there. They're just sitting there. As they do, wind and solar technology at large has and will continue to become more and more antiquated, unnecessary, and obsolete, like I just said. They don't need it. The only reason why they're going to be here for is just a representation of the boot print they got on our ass, or whatever frickin' body part you can imagine them having on us and squishing. That's what it is. The reason why is the need for exponential society-wide increase in the massive energy consumption of AI that they're going to need to centrally plan the whole society with. The same progressivism has in store a colossal need for energy consumption. They're going to plan every minute of our life. And like Comte said, so they'll finally be able to put each person to where he could be best made use of for the benefit of the collective. That's what it is. Okay. Now I got this Ace New York. Let me see. However, ACE New York, which is an organization of, it's kind of like a union or whatever, NGO union of all the solar wind contractors, all the global solar wind contractors kind of get together and they form this ACE. I don't know. And ACE New York is a part of it too. Is the power struggle, the complex relationship between energy and AI. Okay. This is not a anti. This isn't coming from NIMBYs. This isn't coming from deniers. This is coming from not just the Swizzlers, but the addicts, Kool-Aid addicts. They're not just swizzling, they're addicted to this shit. One often overlooked aspect of AI is the massive energy consumption. This is coming from pro-solar wind people, right? Not just for consumption, not just for computation, but for data storage. With large-scale data centers popping up across the country. Gee, I wonder why. Many state lawmakers are evaluating how their grids will handle the increased energy load and the financial burden on ratepayers. Yeah, solar wind is cheaper, but your bill's going to go up. Your NICEAG bill's going to go up. Everything else is going to go up too. AI's economic impact reached $200 billion in 2023. $200 billion. That's AI. And it's projected to surpass $1.8 trillion by 2030. And this is from the organization of solar and wind contractors. Not only is renewable energy essential to sustaining AI operations, so now they're going to say that solar and wind are essential to the AI. They can't possibly produce enough energy to run the shit. But AI itself may prove instrumental in accelerating the clean energy transition, making it more efficient and effective than ever before. So not only is ACE saying that renewables are essential to AI, they're saying AI is essential to renewables. There's kind of a 69 relationship happening there, I think. That's the way I'm seeing it. The Department of Energy is forming more and more stakeholder model public-private partnerships to farm out innovation in the attempt to alleviate the Q interconnection backlog problem and spending millions more doing that. The Department of Energy launched the following stakeholder model public-private partnership in April of 2023. And that's called the Interconnections Innovation Exchange. The Interconnections Innovation Exchange. Yeah. Yeah, listen to this. Solving the interconnection delays and streamlining process requires an open, inclusive, and collaborative all-hands-on-deck approach. Coming from the Department of Energy. They got this I2X quick links, the Interconnection Innovation Exchange. You can't see it, but it says Department of Energy up there. Yeah. No one organization or entity can solve interconnection challenges alone. That's an argument that goes way back in collectivist doctrine and socialist doctrine, progressive collectivist doctrine. Oh, you can't do it on your own. Nobody can do this on your own. It's going to take an all-hands-on-deck approach. It's going to take the government. Nobody but the government involved. Yeah, that goes way back. So that's one right straight out of collectivist doctrine right there. That's why the Department of Energy and the national labs are partnering with utilities, grid operators, state and local governments, energy industry groups, nonprofits, and others to share data, development roadmaps, and facilitate new solutions to improve interconnection procedures. Involving everyone across the interconnection ecosystem. will help reimagine, retool, and shape the grid for the future. Yeah, because like I said before, the grid that we've had and these renewables, the grid, they don't work for the grid. They're not compatible with the grid. It's one of the problems that they got. And if they just boost up the energy production from, fossil fuels, or clean up fossil fuels, however they want to do that, no, they ain't going to do that, because, fossil fuels are getting funded too, right? It's not like they're not getting subsidized. They're getting subsidized too. Everything's getting freaking subsidized, so everybody gets addicted. Everybody's addicted, man. Everybody's addicted to that government money, and the more addicted you are, the more you're going to have your hands out like this, do whatever they ask, pretty much, right? Yeah. Join us. It says the I2X program requires the involvement of a wide range of stakeholders. Again, stakeholders, a word straight out of collectivist doctrine, world socialist doctrine. Okay? Stakeholders replaced shareholders. Instead of shareholders in companies that were privately owned, shareholders would buy stock or whatever, and you would want that company to, be prosperous, to make a profit and be out there in the market, be competitive in a market. If you have a company that's exposed to market sources and you want that company to survive and be competitive, then you're going to want that company to succeed so that your investment in that company will profit. That's what, but they changed shareholders to stakeholders in collectivist doctrine, because capitalism, free market capitalism and free enterprise is bad. Centrally planned socialist economy good, straight out of collectivist doctrine, makes stakeholders good, shareholders bad. So requires involvement from a wide range of stakeholders to address interconnection challenges. And other stakeholders are appointed too. They're not voted in. They put these stakeholder committees. They got all these centrally planned sustainable development committees that they put through. Central planning committees in all the states had to have one. Since the 90s they started implementing this shit under Clinton. Okay, you got the Federal Sustainable Development Committee full of stakeholders, and they take a big panel of stakeholders and they appoint. It could be any number of these quote-unquote stakeholders that are appointed. Central planning committees locally here, even in the state, you have county, and then you have regional county. You have like a group of like 5-6 counties in your region that has to have a central plan through which the county plans all have to be compliant, which is again stepping on our republic. You have the local, the town, the village. Each of them have to have their own central plan. Their sustainable development steering committee plan that makes that plan as a panel of stakeholders to come up with a central plan. Of course, the village central plans and the town village and city central plans have to be compliant with the town central plans, which have to be compliant with the county central plans, which have to be compliant with the regional central plan, which has to be compliant with the state central plan, which has to be compliant with the federal central plan, which has to be compliant to the United Nations Central Sustainable Development Plan for the world and global governance. That's how it works. And of course, if you're not in a compliant, you don't have a central plan, and you're not in compliance with everything, all those other central plans, all the way up to the top to the UN, then we're just going to starve you of funding. You're not going to qualify for funding. So, the stakeholders, appointed stakeholders, get to set up the rules for development or future, whatever. They get to set up the rules of development within which our elected officials are allowed to operate. All in order to stay compliant to the central plans, the central plan, but if you don't, if you step outside that box, then you're just not going to get any funding. And everybody's addicted to the funding now. It's where we are. And I'm going to touch on that in a minute. As a matter of fact, I might just skip down here a bit. No, I'm going to touch on it in a minute. Let's keep in mind that spending. We'll come back to that. I'll touch on that a little bit deeper here. But it requires involvement from a wide range of stakeholders to address interconnection challenge. Join the I2X today and contribute to developing innovation solutions, and sign up for the I2X Connect to engage with other stakeholders on key interconnection topics. This is the Department of Energy. This is the Department of Energy. Let me see. I don't know if there's a date on this. March 2024. So it's, I don't know. But anyways, that's a policy of a federal agency, right? That's how locked into this shit we are. New York State has its own United Nations inspired stakeholder model in the shared governance of the independent New York NISO, I call it for short, New York Independent Systems Operator, like I showed you the map in yesterday's, in the other show that I did, the second one in this series. I put a map up there of all the power grid sections, how they're broken up across our country. New York State has its own service area, and it's referred to as the New York Independent Systems Operator, or I just call it NISO for short, but I could be wrong. Could be the only one who pronounces it that way. Yeah, the shared governance of the independent NISO. Shared governance. Currently addressing peak demand shortages, intermittent nature of wind and solar with the demand side response. They have what they call a demand side response of higher rates. Yeah, they figure, well, if they can raise the rates high enough, then your demand will go down. Fuck. That's an innovation for you, isn't it? Boy, I tell you what, boy, that's brainstorming shit right there. But anyways, they get this demand-side response of higher rates to the consumer via a number of centralized innovations. Note the NISO works to set energy costs. It sets energy costs in the wholesale energy market via consensus among its energy storage, transfer, and producer stakeholder partners. So these guys all get together and they get to decide what the value of things are. There's no market. They get to decide what the value of things are and what we're going to be paying in our bills and in our taxes. They're all getting together. In the actual market, if I'm in a business and a small business, mom and pop business, I had a landscaping company for years. I was in the business, ran it for 40 years plus. I was in that business, to a successful degree. I didn't go out of business. I didn't go bankrupt. I ran it, and I was able to make, do okay with it for 40 some years. But to take what they're doing and apply it to what I've known how to run a business or what's legal or not illegal, for me, say if I own a landscaping company and I get together with the other landscaping companies and say, hey, listen, man, there's like 5 of us major landscaping companies in this area. Why don't we get together and just say that, we're not going to do anything labor unless we'll all charge, none of us are going to charge less than $100 an hour, just to throw a number out there. But the market value for labor on the street, everybody else is paying, like freaking 25 or something, just to throw a number out there. Now we're going to charge, if we get together and they don't have a choice, they don't have no place else to go, but this group of landscapers, farmers are doing the same shit. These co-ops are all doing the same shit. But these if I got together with a bunch of other landscapers to try and lock prices in, high prices in, that would be called a conspiracy, and that's illegal. Last I knew, for people in business, but for the government and their stakeholder partners, man, that's just what they do, right? That's just what they do to save money. I don't know. FYI, that's not a market. It's the wholly government subsidized, enslaving public-private partnership trade-off, affectionately referred to in American lore as the company store. Exactly. It's just another way of looking at what these people are doing to us and how they're doing it. These public-private partnerships, these RECs, how they get together with federal agencies, and they have their stakeholder meetings, and everybody who's going to be sucking on the tit there, you know what I mean? Literally, the government, they're like leeches on this freaking shit. And they're the ones who get to decide policy, all the leeches, not the host. You know what I mean? Can you imagine? But this whole company store shit, all these recs that these companies are being forced to be in compliance with, well, if you're going to play the game, you're going to be in on the public-private partnership, you're going to be in on the scam, then you're going to have to pay, dude. You're going to have to pay your punk dues to the state. You're going to have to pay them. If you have to buy these recs and show the state that you're in compliance, which you can do, even if you're using 100% coal, you just go to your nearest or wherever they have a rec available, because they're in high demand. People are scrambling to buy these things, right? So if they've even produced enough electricity to even produce a rec, because they have to produce a kilowatt hour of electricity onto the grid, supposedly, in order for 1 kilowatt hour rec to be produced. Supposedly. There's probably scams in that too. But so this company that's on 100% coal can buy a REC, a renewable energy credit, in the equal amount of the energy used on coal, to say that, you know, I'm carbon free, man. I don't have a carbon footprint. I'm in compliance. All right, you pay that punk due, man. Pay that punk dues and show that you paid your punk due with that credit. And if there isn't any credits available, you can just pay your punk dues straight to the state. I shit you not. NYSERDA's got a policy where you can just, which is the New York State agency, or I don't know what it is, public-private partnership itself, I don't know. But that's where all the funding for all these renewables is getting put through. It's nuts. Yeah, the company store. So you it's the same thing as the old company store. You remember the company stores, you work for the company and you got paid, and you lived in a company house in a company village and you got paid, but the only place you could spend that certificate, wooden nickel or whatever it was, the only place it was good was at the company store. You couldn't go outside the company village. Everything that you made, you had to spend at the company store. So that company never lost the money that it paid you. It just came right back. It just came right back. It just came right back. But any place outside the company village or the company store, you're literally a slave. You have nothing from which you are independent. There's no independence whatsoever. It's the same shit, just kind of from a different approach. I remember being taught the story of company stores and wooden nickels and all that shit. Don't take any wooden nickels, you know? I mean, it is what it is, right? Like the New York, like NISO, New York Independent Systems Operation Region, the PJM region, which is this region here, because New York ISO here, Northeast ISO is here. This is the PJM region, consisting of 13 states and DC, is a similar centralized public-private partnership, is in similar centralized public-private partnership disarray. PJM Interconnection is a regional transmission organization that coordinates the movement of wholesale electricity in all or parts of Delaware, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. Just so you know where we are, where that is. Record high price. Record high price. Okay. This is coming from Power Advisory is the name of the place. This came out in 2023, July of 2023. Figure 2, which is this chart down below, is the departure from the markets, is the departure from where the market thought prices would go to where they actually went on these RECs. Market. Remember, market's bullshit. There isn't a market. It's all dictated. In October 2018, the price of RECs, okay, was $6.28, and futures were pointing to a price of $7.85 per megawatt hour. But see, I don't know. Per megawatt hour. That's what this chart down here says. It was $6.28. In the futures, we're pointing at a price to $7.85 by 2023. Instead, the price went much higher and higher than expected. Well, one of the reasons why is you've got, all these solar panels, but you got more and more companies scrambling for these RECs to try and prove that they're emissions free or in compliance with the net zero shit, right? So you can see the difference in what they projected. This is what they projected and where they went, up to 3104 instead of 74. It's not the number, the actual price that I'm looking at. I'm just trying to show you everything that they're saying is going to be at this cost. Everything is exponentially higher. They can't predict how much things are go in the future, how much things are going to cost in the future with anything, whether it's these racks, whether it's the cost of construction of these renewables. They're spending so much money. Every time these people go bankrupt, they're spending so much money, they have to get another grant to cover the cost increase, to get another grant which causes an increase, then they have to get another grant to cover the cost increase of the grant they had before, and it's applied across the whole country. It's nuts. The main factor behind this price hike is the troubled interconnection queue. Okay, demand again. It's the connections. Just another freaking ripple effect of these connection queue backlog. Demand from RPS has been increasing, but RPS. Anyways, demand from the RPS has been increasing, but supply has not kept pace. PJM became overwhelmed with requests for interconnections over the past 5 years. The study process has been designed for conventional generation projects, right? Like I was saying, our grid, as we have known it, is incompatible with the forced renewable energy that the forced renewables that are being forced on us are incompatible with our grid. So they're not going to back off on the renewables. They're going to force change on the grid, which is exponentially even more expensive. They're not going to say, oh, geez, well, maybe we ought to back off and rethink this. That ain't going to happen. The study process has been designed for conventional generation projects and was now seeing 95% renewable energy projects, and this transition led to delays. Yep. In April of 2022, PJM decided to close the queue for 2 years from accepting new requests. So they just didn't even accept any. I don't know how many solar freaking projects and wind projects they put up in that time when they weren't even accepting anybody into the grid or the queues to be put on the grid. FERC, the federal agency, later extended that time frame until 2026. So in this whole area right here, they've been just told that they're not going to accept any more people into the grid, at least as of 2023. Right? Another four-year period. Between 2017 and 2022, the time it took between making an interconnection request and securing an interconnection agreement rose from 28 months to 2.3 years to 64 months, 5.3 years in that area right there. Okay, I've got this these RECs here. I got a double red star on that, kind of a note on those RECs. These RECs are a scam. This is what I'm putting out there. They're a freaking scam. Kind of touched on it a little bit already. They're a scam in and of themselves. They are being bought by companies and government agencies to show, quote, proof that you are getting your energy from renewable sources. The carbon credits. What are renewable energy credits? It's like a pay-for-play, what is it? I know, a cap and trade, carbon credits, all forced redistribution of wealth, redistributive justice. It's that's what it is. But they're a scam made up to show proof that you are getting your energy from renewable sources, even if you're not. Even if they have actually used zero energy from renewable sources. These RECs are said to be supplying up to 30% of the revenue for renewable projects. Like I said, they're not just producing the energy. If they were just if you're going to produce energy, you sell the energy at a profit, and people pay your bills, and that's how you do it. But then you have a government come in to say, well, you're also going to be producing this other bullshit item, this fabricated item, like a freaking carbon credit, kind of the same shit. And we're going to force people to buy that so you can make money on that too. So it'll incentivize the whole concept of our agenda based on the fact that people are going to be forced to buy them. Wait till they apply some kind of thinking along them lines to the general public, or have they already? All right. These RECs are said to be supplying up to 30% of the revenue for these projects. Yeah. It came from that source right there. That in theory incentivizes support for more renewable projects again, right? I got this Kleinman Center for Energy Policy, renewable energy credits, decarbonizing the grid, or just a corporate messaging tool. I want to get this information to you out there, so I might be diving a little bit too deep into this. I don't know, for some people or most people or for everybody but me, I don't know. But I found this fascinating, just how fucked we're getting by these people. And I wanted to get this information out to you so that you could see it. I'm not making this shit up. This information is coming from, in many, if not most cases, from the Swizzlers, these guys that are freaking out there scrambling for the government funds to put this shit through. This is coming from the people that are pushing the whole renewable, green New Deal, green economy shit. A lot of it. Just putting that out there. Renewable energy credits, decarbonizing the grid, or just a corporate messaging tool. So let's dive into that a little bit, right? This comes from this article here. Yeah, that's from June 2023. So, I mean, it's relatively recent. It's just 2 years ago, right? How outdated can it be? While there are several approaches to procure green energy with varying degrees of impact, RECs, renewable energy credits, have become the leading instrument for both the consumers and utility companies to comply with standards and substantive statements regarding their environmental initiatives. However, the validity of these claims is coming under increased scrutiny by experts. When did I hear? I've never heard any of this shit. I wasn't made available. Is this just like all inside freaking baseball kind of shit that people that are scrambling for all this money? I mean, who gets to question any of this without losing their job, right? I don't know. Yeah, the validity of these claims is coming under increased scrutiny by experts. The most puzzling aspect of RECs in this fact is that they do not represent the actual electricity that results from green energy production. It's not the energy. They don't come from the energy. That goes on the grid to be sold down the line to whoever's buying that, right? The other thing is that they say, too, is that, well, once the energy goes on the grid, you can't tell that energy from all the other energy because it gets mixed in with all that shit from the coal and from the gas and from the nuclear, so you can't decipher which is which. Well, if our, grid is incompatible and they got to basically replace it anyway. I don't know. So they come up with these freaking wrecks. It's another excuse for the wrecks. Bullshit. It's bullshit. Yeah. The most puzzling aspect of these wrecks is the fact that they do not represent the actual electricity that results from the green energy production, only its social and environmental components. Like I said, I'm not making this shit up. Since the actual electricity in the wrecks are often sold separately in what are called unbundled certificates, the electricity itself is being used by a company that acquired wrecks is not only inherently any cleaner or dirtier than that from its next door neighbor, which has never heard of these certificates. Right. This company, however, is legally allowed to make claims such as 100% energy comes from renewable sources, even if 100% of their energy comes from frickin' coal. You're allowed to lie. If you pay enough money, you can lie. Sanctioned lying. Even if the actual electricity was produced by a coal plant. See, I'm not making this shit up. A number of studies have zeroed in on the influence of voluntary wrecks. This is voluntary. I mean, you can pay extra money on your bill if you want. You're being volunteer, man, because you pay that money. It's your social responsibility to just kind of, throw some money out there and help these people out while they're scamming your country into oblivion. Yeah. The influence of voluntary wrecks, those purchased by private customers on renewable energy production, and have gathered significant evidence to suggest that these certificates have had little to no impact. One of these studies, led by researchers at Princeton, Harvard, and UCLA, for example, found that if the power market for voluntary wrecks did not exist, the amount of electricity generated by wind power in the United States would be little different than what we actually see today. So the voluntary wrecks, I don't know, it's kind of a feel-good thing that you're participating, man. We'll come up with, you can throw money at us and we'll say that you're participating in this. We'll give you credit. We'll give you attaboys, a little star on your head or whatever. Yeah. A paper published in 2022 in Nature, which received significant attention from the media, argued that due to the drop in the prices of wrecks in recent years, the revenue associated with these certificates is insufficient to promote an increase in green energy production. The paper concludes that while the group of companies being analyzed reported a combined 30.7% reduction in emissions resulting from their REC purchases, the actual reduction was closer to 9.9. So they're fudging the numbers. What little difference is being produced is being fudged. What little, if any, has been fudged, and they've been caught. Renewable energy certificates threaten the integrity of corporate-based, science-based targets. Of corporate science-based, the integrity can there be integrity in anything referred to as corporate science-based targets? Gotta believe in the science, man. That was a white paper, right? Renewable energy credits, the ultimate greenwash. Just another, just more. This came out in 2011, but it's still being referred to in papers that are coming out recently. It's still being referenced or sourced in credited in papers. A REC represents the alleged environmental amenities associated with certain forms of electrical power production such as wind or solar. For those in the trade, one REC is created every time 1 megawatt hour of renewable energy is generated. For comparison, the average American household uses just under 1 megawatt hour every month. So that gives you an idea how much energy a megawatt hour is. All right. And that comes from EIA. That's a .gov website. The average price is a little under $1 per rec. But according to exposés published by Bloomberg News and Business Week, the actual cost of generating 1 megawatt of green power can range anywhere from $40 to over $90 per megawatt hour. And they're selling them for $1. Who's covering the rest of the freaking cost? Where's that? What? 1/90th or 1/40th to 1/90th of the cost of producing the rec, not the electricity of the rec. All right. According to exposés publishing by Bloomberg News and Newsweek, the actual cost of generating 1 new megawatt hour of green power can range anywhere. Oh, the power. So the power, to generate that power per megawatt hour is $40 to $90 per megawatt hour. We're going to revisit that. Okay, this was back in 2011. Right. In fact, a study published by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, the cost of solar power can reach as high as $680 per megawatt hour. But that link is no longer available. $1. So the average price back in 2011 was $1 per rec. It was costing them $40 to $90 per kilowatt hour, they said, but studies showed that it was reaching as high as $680 per megawatt hour, right? Per megawatt hour. Furthermore, for those concerned about global warming, RECs do not reduce total carbon emissions, according to the EPA itself. This link doesn't work either. Sorry, this doesn't work. But this article cited the EPA for those concerned about global warming that RECs do not reduce total carbon emissions. So the REC itself that you're buying to prove that you're 100% in zero emission compliance, net zero compliance, even though you're burning 100% coal, the REC itself doesn't reduce emissions. Okay. As a fabricated commodity, as I was saying, I'm not the only one. As a fabricated commodity, RECs are the ultimate greenwash. That's what they call them, a greenwash, you know. That article is still getting cited in a lot of different articles that I came across. That's why I put it on here. Now, this $1 per rec. Considering inflation rates post-COVID, rec prices, though volatile, haven't really changed much. They haven't really changed all that much. We'll get into that here in a second. They got this green grid here. This is $1. This is $1. Okay. And it went up to $7, but now it's back down to like $3.50. You know, that's the price range of national greenie pricing. And this chart came from here. There it came from right there. Yeah, so, but meanwhile, skyrocketing construction and production costs have forced contractors to back out. A lot of them. Abandoned or attempted to renegotiate increased subsidies. They have to back out, abandon, or attempt to renegotiate increase subsidies and rates that they've locked into in order to be able to finish the projects. But New York State and New York City don't want to hear it. So you've got the billion-dollar debate splitting New York's renewable energy industry. A major wind and solar developer is defecting from the industry ranks, arguing the state shouldn't bail out struggling projects. If you've got all kinds of these guys backing out of these projects, they've been backing out transmission lines, windmill projects, offshore, onshore, solar panels. They're all there's a lot of them backing out. Renegotiating because of the exponentially increasing prices because of the inflation. Again, due to the amount of money they're spending. They're spending us into oblivion. And as they spend us the dollar into oblivion, or oblivion, however you want to say it, then every dollar is worth less. It continues to exponentially decrease in value, which causes inflation to go up and prices to go up. Right? You just need more and more and more of the dollar to buy whatever it is that you were going to buy. Every day you wake up, the dollar's worth less. It's basically where we're at. In June, this is from 2023, in June, alongside two offshore wind developers, ACE filed a petition, this ACE again, filed a petition with state energy regulators seeking to increase the price of energy from dozens of onshore renewable projects awarded contracts between 2017 and 2021. Together, they amounted to roughly 80% of new onshore renewables the state has contracted to date. This is back in 2023, fall of 2023, so 2 years ago. Sorry. Each state contract guarantees that the energy from the planned wind and solar farms will be bought at a certain price once they're up and running. Okay, you have to provide this energy. Once your project is up, you're going to have to provide energy to the state or to the grid for a price. But then by the time they get into building it they're realizing that they're going to just lose money. It's a losing proposition because of inflation, right? because of the government spending that's made the project that they're working on. It goes round and round. But ACE says the projects are no longer viable at the agreed upon prices. The group blames skyrocketing, unpredictable price spikes that have outpaced the economy-wide inflation, with supply chain shocks hitting steel and cement, wind turbine blades, and the high-voltage transformers. Interest rates making it more expensive to finance projects, and the surging global demand for renewables. Oh, because there's so many renewables going on. Because of the spending, the government money they're spending on all those renewables. It's causing the inflation. And the competition for government money. How is there a competition for government money? Yeah, I guess, right? Yeah. Rather than renegotiating projects one by one, ACE wants to apply for a single adjustment formula to all 86 projects, a blanket increase for all of them, which would increase the financial prices by anywhere from 43 to 73%. Okay. That would add billions more dollars to New Yorkers' electric bills. And that's the billions that you're going to pay direct in your electric bill. ACE consultants themselves estimate the total cost at $5.8 billion over 20 years. The project increases from offshore wind are even steeper still. The group Multiple Inventors, which represents major corporate energy users, estimates them to be $18 billion across 4 projects. $18 billion, $5 billion, increases in prices 43 to 73%, adding billions to our electric bills. Solar and wind is cheaper, remember, okay? AES contends, I think that's supposed to be ACES, I don't know. AES contends that this wouldn't stop New York from reaching its target of 70% renewable energy by 2030 because the projects that fail may never have been viable in the first place and could be replaced by more promising ones in time to meet that goal. Yeah, so they're just basically throwing all the smaller companies that are going out of business on these things under the bus, so that they can get the contracts. That's what I'm seeing. The company has a potential business interest at stake. If projects are canceled and NYSERDA, this is a New York funding agency, and NYSERDA puts them back out to bid, AES would get a shot at them, just like I said. They're throwing all those people that are going under the bus again to get run over again because they want the contracts. They want a chance to bid them up and get the contracts. You know. AES estimates that 12 of the 40 large-scale projects in the group could go ahead without any hike in subsidies. But it's hard for outside observers to judge just how necessary the subsidies are to keep the projects afloat. Yeah. Because the ACE developers have not submitted any project-level financial information for public review. So ACE is withholding information from the public, according to this. I don't know if I didn't put the link in there or what the hell I did. But that's the article. The billion-dollar debate splitting New York's renewable energy industry. A major wind and solar developer is defecting from the industry ranks, arguing the state shouldn't bail out struggling projects. I must have forgot to put the link in there. Sorry about that. I'll put it in the show notes. That way everybody's on the same page with that. New York's public-private partnership they're at war with each other. New York State's public partners are at war with each other over every little funding scrap that they can get, but it's a war we're paying for. It's a war we're paying for. In not only our electric bills, not only in a devalued dollar and inflation. Yeah, that's what we're paying. It's not only in our electric bills, we're paying for it in our devalued dollar and inflation. Exponentially. Compounding. Because every dollar they're fighting for to get more of decreases the value of our dollar. Because this has happened on a colossal scale. This is on a mega scale. You know? The forcibly redistributive, market-based rec scam incentivizing renewables is global. I just want to put this on. This doesn't just happen in New York. It's not just happening in our country. It's a global thing. It's a global compliance to a global narrative of global governance. Renewable energy credits, certificates, and attributes, which is another way they call them, are the same thing. Yeah, renewable energy credits, energy certificates, and energy attributes are the same thing. Just wanted to point that out. I got this from Science Direct. RECs are also known as renewable energy attributes, energy attribute certificates, guarantees of origin in Europe, and renewable energy guarantees of origin in the UK. Just putting that out there. Energy attribute certificates, okay? 101, basically a REC, your guide to understanding unbundled energy attribute certificates. That's what the energy attribute certificate. RECs and EECs or whatever they want to call them, I have no idea. But anyways, this was put out in just last fall, November 2024. Okay, it gives you kind of an idea what, in a picture, where traditional energy resources will only generate electricity, a renewable energy resource will also produce an EEC or a REC for every megawatt hour of electricity generated. So producing for every megawatt hour of electricity, you get a REC that companies are going to be forced to buy, for one, incentivize more renewables, and to falsely show their partners to be in compliance with the agenda that none of them are in compliance with. Very few to none. Regardless of the objectives of a corporate renewable energy procurement strategy, incentivizing new renewable energy on the grid, responding to customers' demands, or meeting near-term global or greenhouse gas reduction goals, the retirement of a EEC or REC is a critical step in making clean energy claims under market-based scope to accounting. By purchasing and retiring an EEC or REC for every megawatt hour of electricity consumed, a company can claim the renewable energy attributes of the generation, which can reduce or eliminate their market-based scope to emissions. Yeah, so basically what I was telling you is just another article. This is over in the UK or in Europe. Right, same shit, but it's showing you in pictures of what's actually happening. You know, electric to the grid, coming down from these windmills. They make a green attribute or a REC, energy attribute or REC certificates. Corporations purchase these RECs from project owner or market suppliers, corporate customer. And then the corporation retires a REC, which means once you buy them, they can't be traded again. So it's a programmable currency with a expiration date. And the expiration date is once you buy it and show that you've bought that and comply it, you can't sell it to anybody else. You have to retire it. And the same kind of shit, if you think about it, is coming soon to a currency. If they go to a centralized digital currency or programmable digital currency, what they're going to do is basically eliminate cash. That's what they've been working towards for a long time. It'll be just like prison. In prison, inmates can't have money. They have what they call inmate accounts. They run inmate accounts. The prisons have it in there. They have money in their account or whatever. People donate money to them, or they have a program. They have a right to a job, right to a program. It's a human right, a right to a job. In jail, they call it a program. Well, they get paid, and then they put that money that gets put into their account, and then they can only buy products with that money that's in their account off approved lists. And then once off that approved list, if they want to buy something, they have to submit what they call a disbursement form to request permission from the state from the state, which the person would be like a depot security at the facility level, would be able to give that inmate permission to use his money out of his account to purchase that particular previously approved item. And they can't exchange that item with any other inmate. They're not allowed to, or you get an unauthorized exchange. The other thing is that they're going to add to that will be an expiration date on your money. They go to a centralized programmable digital currency. You go to work and you get paid under that kind of a system. What they could do, because they don't want you saving money. They don't want you hoarding money. They don't want you building wealth that they say is actually belongs to the collective, because you need to be able to spend 100% of everything that you're paid, just like at the company store. You need to be able to pay 100% of everything that you need to spend 100% of what you're paid within a certain amount of time, so that it goes back to the collective from which it came. I shit you not. It's the same kind of a philosophy that they used to make that, what was it? Nancy Pelosi? Nancy Pelosi was explaining how, unemployment creates jobs. That's the same philosophy from which these progressives and progressive collectivist doctrine from which it comes that unemployment creates jobs. Because when you get your unemployment check, you have to spend all of it. You have to spend all of it because there's not enough in it for you to save any money and hoard it from the collective. So you have to go to the store and spend all of it, which gives the girl behind the cash register a job. I shit you not. I shit you not. Can't make that shit up. But anyways, you get a picture idea. Bundled versus unbundled RECs. A corporate buyer has the option to purchase RECs with or without the associated electricity, known as a bundle. So you can bundle it, you get the electricity and the social and the environmental value of it, right? Bundled RECs are sold together with the associated electricity from a specific renewable energy source. And then they go in a little bit on how that's doing it. Conversely, unbundled RECs are generated by renewable energy projects but are unrelated to the associated electricity, exactly, retaining only the environmental claim, environmental and social, which in a collective, everything is socialized. All value is a social value. There is no market value. There can be no market demand. It's all dictated. When you get to a fully and complete centralized economy, a collectivist economy, when it's realized, that's the deal. Yeah. But anyways, you got the green verification report. This is from this one here. The Center for Solutions. Green certificates. It's a little crazy. Got this chart here. Just to give you an idea, you got in the blue, light blue is the RECs, public PPAs, and much of the megawatt hours. Retail sales by product type. Okay. And the light blue are the RECs. There's green pricing, competitive electricity is the purple. The actual electricity is the purple. Community choice aggregation, I don't know what that is exactly. Or, but anyways, that light blue is the RECs. That goes to show you how much of the green energy certified retail sales by product type was in 2022. There's where the chart came from. Yeah. Per the same article, 2021 saw 73% more than 2020. In 2021, green energy certified retail sales totaled 110,607,000 megawatt renewable energy certificate sales, either in the form of standalone RECs in a power purchase agreement or in a virtual power purchase agreement. Continued to drive majority of certified sales and grew by 26% in 2021. Per the same article, 2021 saw 73% more than 2020. So, yeah, 2021 was 73% higher than 2020. 2021 saw a 26% increase over 2020. New York State is in on the REC scam. NYSERDA, okay? You think I'm making this shit up? This comes right out of NYSERDA. Okay. Okay, please check Open New York for the latest project information. The Renewable Energy Standard is a mechanism. It's government with all these acronyms. Is a mechanism enacted by the Green Energy Standard to help New York State reach its ambitious clean energy goals and transitions towards a low carbon energy system. The Renewable Energy Standard, requires utilities and other load-serving entities in the state to practice Tier 1 renewable energy certificates. To procure, the Renewable Energy Standard, requires utilities and other load service entities in the state to procure Tier 1 renewable energy certificates, RECs. It's mandated. It's your punk dues, man. Tier 1 RECs are produced by generators using new renewable energy resources that entered commercial operations on or after January 1, 2015. That's right out of NYSERDA. Also noteworthy in New York State, if for some reason there's not enough RECs to go around, you can always pay your mandated res compliant punk dues to NYSERDA directly, right? NYSERDA will continue to sell their Tier 1 RECs to load-serving entities on a quarterly basis as available. If the load-serving entity is unable to generate or purchase the necessary Tier 1 RECs, they can fulfill their 2024 Tier 1 compliance by making an alternative compliance payment to directly to NYSERDA. Shit you not. Pay the punk dues, man. Pay them up. Green Power Purchase EPA. This is EPA. EPA from this article. Okay. Making this shit up. You know. EPA Green Power Contracts. EPA purchases RECs. The EPA purchases RECs to meet federal requirements for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Even though the EPA just said that those carbon emissions aren't dangerous. As they did back in 2017, right? Does it say what year this? Does it say what year this was? Last update 2025. So this last updated 2025. Yeah, EPA purchases RECs to meet federal requirements for reducing grid emissions to support the clean energy, renewable energy market. Again, EPA obtained 11.777 million kilowatt hours of green certificates. There's 1,000 kilowatts per megawatt. Megawatt hours of green energy certified RECs to supplement on-site renewable generations in fiscal year 2022. Watch the video of RECs making green power possible on YouTube.
You probably know
it's about 3 minutes long. Check it out.
About the benefits of green power or renewable electricity produced by sources such as wind or the sun. Renewable electricity produces no fossil fuel-based greenhouse gas emissions or other air pollutants. That makes it cleaner than electricity that comes from burning coal or natural gas. But if you don't have your own wind turbine or solar panels, how can you use renewable electricity? With renewable energy certificates, also known as RECs, you can purchase renewable power and help the renewable energy market to grow. To understand how RECs work, it helps to understand how electricity is generated and delivered. From fossil fuel-based power plants to wind farms, every power generator produces electricity. This electricity travels to you through a network of transmission and distribution wires, which we call the electric power grid. Electricity from many different sources mixes together in the grid. There's no way to distinguish the exact source that your electricity came from. So how can a consumer like you know that the power you're using is from renewable resources? That's where renewable energy certificates come in. Each REC represents a specific amount of electricity produced and delivered to the power grid by a renewable resource, such as wind or solar. Let's take a wind turbine, for example. For every megawatt hour of electricity it produces, the turbine's owner generates a REC that they can either keep or sell. If you buy the REC, you are now the owner of that green power. RECs allow you to claim that the electricity you use came from a renewable resource with low or zero emissions. In fact, anytime someone claims to use renewable electricity, RECs are involved. Even if you produce your own renewable power on site, you're generating your own RECs. RECs are part of every renewable energy purchase, and they're a credible way to buy and sell renewable electricity because RECs can be uniquely numbered and tracked. Just like an online bank account that keeps track of your electronic banking transactions, anytime a REC is sold, there are systems that track and record it. Once you buy a REC and say that you're using green power.
Yeah, they keep track of it. Everything you buy and sell, just like an inmate accounts.
The REC can no longer be sold or used by someone else. The REC can be retired in the tracking system to prevent someone else from claiming it. EPA recommends buying RECs that are certified and verified. This ensures that your green power was generated by a quality renewable resource and what you bought was actually produced. Why are RECs so important? Because they are the currency of the renewable energy market. They allow people and organizations to choose cleaner sources of energy and reduce their carbon footprints. RECs give you the flexibility to support
even if they're using 100% coal. So keep using the coal. Buy these RECs, man. And, yeah.
renewable energy even if you can't generate it yourself, or if your local utility doesn't offer a green power product. If RECs did not exist, it would be difficult to say for sure that you're using renewable electricity. In today's electricity market, RECs really do make a difference. By buying RECs, you're providing revenue to support renewable energy projects. When enough people buy RECs, these purchases promote growth in the green power marketplace and help to avoid greenhouse gas emissions across the country. For more information about RECs and how they
I just wanted you to see that. I mean, boy, they're. But you just can't wait to jump on that ship, right? I can't wait, man. I want that. I want to get locked into that, right? I don't know, but that's how they sell. They keep track of everything. It is what it is, but it's a scam, Renewable energy and credits, RECs, what you need to know. Here's another one, another article. I mean, there's so many different ways to see the scam. Just another article there. Compliance buyers are electrical utilities obligated to have a certain percentage of their electricity generation come from renewables resources. Some states have regulations called renewable portfolio standards, right? Like we just nice CERTA, right? That set requirements for renewable energy use. These laws mean that a utility must provide renewable credits as proof that it sourced a set amount of its electricity from renewable resources. The utility can generate the RECs with renewable energy sources, but if they don't develop enough, they must purchase them. Yeah, that's your punk dude that you get. Hey, P, what's up, kid? Oh, kid, here. NEP's getting just had enough of this shit, but we kind of went over that a little bit. Cato, the false economic promise of offshore wind. This comes from the Cato Institute, right? Spring 2024. Cato is obviously a reference right-wing or political to the right, leans to the right, whatever. But this is what they've got. The second and far more prominent justification given for offshore wind is that it will create entirely new green industries to manufacture, install, and maintain turbines and expand existing industries needed to provide inputs to the new green ones. It's going to create a whole new economy, man. All dependent on the government money, right? Advocates claim that this will increase economic growth and create thousands of new jobs in states pursuing the technology. This claim is false. Yeah. In addition to the growing cost of materials, the increasing size of the newest and largest turbines to be installed. Where are you, weed? Here, kid. To be installed, which weigh over 800 tons and stand 850 feet tall. That's taller than the ones they're going to put here. The ones they got scheduled to put here is just about 700 feet, just under 700 feet. Requires specialized and costly ships. Oh, listen to this. Okay. They need special ships. These offshore. The increasing size of the newest and largest turbines to be installed, which weigh over 800 tons and stand 850 feet tall, requires specialized and costly ships like the jacked up rigs used for offshore oil drilling. There are fewer than 10 such ships in the world, most of which are in the use in Europe and China. Moreover, the Jones Act, a 1920 protectionist relic, requires that goods shipped between the U.S. ports and transported on U.S. ports be transported on U.S. vessels. Does the Jones Act endanger American seamen? Fall 2017. Only one such installation ship, aptly named the Charybdis, I don't know, is Jones Act compliant and will not be delivered until late this year or early 2025. So all those turbines that are being put offshore, the big ones, there's only one ship that's available, and that ship wasn't even available until this year. The inadequacy of several offshore wind developers' pre-COVID bids became apparent last summer. The developers appeared to have succumbed to the well-known winner's curse, in which, in their zeal to win, auction bidders end up paying an above-market price for an item that they wish to obtain, or, as in the case of offshore wind, agreed to sell a product at a price that does not reflect their actual cost. Right. Well, that's where we are with milk. That's where we are with milk. Since 1938, the farmers, through New Deal legislation, the governments took over milk. There's no market. The farmers can't sell their milk or onto the market. They have to sell it to New York State. New York State Milk Control sets the price. New York State Milk Control sets the price. It's not a market. And when New York State Milk Control is setting the price for your product, for your milk, it sets the price regardless of your cost. And like I said before, when my father and my grandfather had a farm, I think they were milking 30, 40 head. We had 45, 50 head all together or whatever, something similar to that. They sold their milk, and you had to profit off that sales in order to run your farm, feed your family, pay your bills, that kind of shit, right? Well, when after New York State Milk Control took over the milk prices in 1938, was New Deal legislation, via New Deal legislation, the profit margins on all the smaller family farms, like the one my family had, all went out of business because they couldn't operate on the smaller and smaller profit margins. So the farms had to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point that they had to redefine what a farm is, because the farms were no longer farms. They were legally determined to be CAFOs, or concentrated animal feeding operations. Legally had to change the definition of what a farm is because it got so big, and this area is full of them. all government subsidiaries, all on government subsidies. But so the profit margins are down. So the farmers that are doing huge volumes, they eat up all the small family farms, and that's how the family farms are just gone now. Through the same kind of shit that they're doing here. Only these people don't even have any private businesses to compete against anymore, because it's a whole new entity created as a product of government for the government and its partners, for the benefit of government and its partners. But that's what it is. It's the way I see it. It's what I'm seeing. Yeah. The true cost of offshore wind subsidies. This is crazy. They're promising all these jobs. They're saying that the energy is cheap. The solar and wind are cheap. The U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, 2023 average overnight capital cost, absent all financing costs, estimate for offshore wind that comes online in 2026 is just over $5,300 per kilowatt hour. Per kilowatt in $22. The U.S. Energy Information Administration estimates for offshore wind that comes online in 2026 is just over $5,300 per kilowatt hour in $22. The EIA then adds a 25% technology factor for the first units constructed, because the construction costs for such units tend to be underestimated. The U.S. Energy Information Administration then adds a 25% technology factor for the first units constructed, because construction costs for such units tend to be underestimated, which raises the average to about $6,700 per kilowatt hour. The U.S. Energy Information Administration also estimates regional differences in the cost, ranging between $6,000 per kilowatt hour and $10,000 per kilowatt hour. For example, the Energy Information Administration's estimate for offshore wind in New England is $7,800 per kilowatt hour. The agency estimates for the cost of Northern California, where floating wind turbines will be required to compensate for the rapid increase in ocean depth, is over $10,000 per kilowatt hour. There's 1,000 kilowatts in a megawatt, right? Job creation, $10,000 per kilowatt. So, I don't know. Job creation and subsidy estimates. Again, this is coming from the Cato Institute, this article right here. They're not a pro. I don't know what they are. I don't know what the Cato Institute is, what they're pro this or pro that, but they're alleged to be a conservative I don't know. What do they call them? NGO, right? Brain Trust or whatever. But I don't know. The true cost of offshore wind subsidies. The U.S. Energy Information Act. Okay, we're at $10,000 per kilowatt hour. The job creation thing's another scam. Another aspect of the scam, because it's a selling point. It's a selling point, especially for the unions that are going to get the construction job. It doesn't matter to them outside the construction getting done. Once that's done, then what does it matter? You move on to the next construction job, right? Using information submitted by developers in the required construction and operations plan, they must file with the Bureau of Oceans Energy Management. What's going on, Pete? Oh, you coming up, Steph? Yep. All right. Yeah, Steph's coming up. Go get her, Pete. Go get her. Tell her, you tell her. The jobs creation is another whole part of the scam. Come here, kid. Come on, settle in. Settle in. Come on. Here. Get up here. Settle in, kid. Yeah. Maybe going on alert because mom had to get in, take care of some stuff. But anyways, getting ready to take off here. She's got to go to a baby shower. First grandchild. It's kind of exciting times, you know. That's part of the reasons why I'm doing this too, is because, I mean, what kind of world is, not even for my children, you know, my grandchildren and their children and their children's children, right? What kind of world are we, for them, are we creating with this shit, right? But using information submitted by developers in the required construction and operations plan, they must file with the Bureau of Oceans Energy Management. It is possible to estimate the resulting direct jobs that developers claim their projects will create and the resulting cost per job created. And I'm going to, let me see. Okay. And for jobs created. It is possible to estimate the resulting direct jobs that developers claim their projects will create and the resulting cost per job created. For example, in the filings for the now canceled Ocean Wind 1, Osted, the company that was putting them on, claimed that the project will require an average of 1,550 construction workers for 2-year estimated construction period, plus 69 operations and maintenance workers for the project's estimated 25-year life. In total, this amounted to 4,825 job years, i.e. full-time equivalent jobs for 1 year. Okay, so that would be 4,825 job years. The developers of Sunrise Wind estimated the project would require 800 construction workers for 2-year construction period, plus 109 operations and managers workers over the project's lifetime. Using the average value of direct job years per megawatt shown on Table 2, the 42,730 megawatt of state-mandated offshore wind would allegedly create, I put the word allegedly in there, create approximately 175,000 job years. With a direct federal investment tax credit subsidy of $68 billion. $68 billion. The direct cost to American taxpayer for each job year would be $389,000. The direct cost to an American taxpayer for each job year would be $389,000 in 2022 dollars per job year. So each job for a year is $603 cost. An amount far larger than the wages construction and operations workers will be paid. Of course, offshore wind subsidies are not limited to the federal ITC of 30% or more. The long-term and above-market PPA contracts are themselves subsidies paid by electrical ratepayers. This excludes the cost of additional backup generation and storage required to, quote, unquote, firm up the grid, right? To inherently intermittent offshore availability. They have to firm up everything onshore or offshore. It doesn't matter. They're incompatible with the grid. They have to have battery storage because they're intermittent. Solar panels only produce it when the sun's shining, and that efficiency only measures the efficiency of what percentage of the sunlight they're turning into energy when the sun is shining. So they're only 15 to 24% efficient. What percent of the time is sun shining? Here in New York, I would say it's probably 35%. So they're only 15 to 24% efficient, maybe 30% of the time. The rest of the time, they're 0% efficient because it's either dark or it's cloudy, raining or snowing. They're covered with snow, and when they're covered with snow, I've driven by solar panel projects where solar panels have 1 inch, 2 inches of snow on them. You know. But using the average monthly wholesale electric prices for New England's independent system operators, Rhode Island zone, and most monthly generation data published by the Energy Information Agency, right? The annual subsidy for the wind farm can be calculated as shown in Table 3. I don't have Table 3 here. Through September 2023, the subsidy totals almost $169 million. Based on the total electric consumption in Rhode Island for the first 9 months of 2023, the $16.3 million subsidy amounted to an additional 2.9 cents per kilowatt hour charge for customers. Based on the average residential 2023 residential customer consumption of about 5,200 kilowatts through the first 9 months of the annualized basis, this would amount to a $200 tax on the typical residential customer's electric bill. So the subsidies that are being subsidized through our electric bills to build these frickin' things, not just the taxes we're being taxed through our bill directly, amounts to a $200 a year typical residential customer electrical bill. The subsidies per job year that result from the above market PPA prices range from $750,000 for Revolution Wind. The subsidized per job year that results from the above market prices range from $750,000 for Revolution Wind to $2 million for South Fork Wind off Long Island. I would imagine South Fork, Long Island. It is likely that the $2 million subsidy per direct job year estimate for the South Fork Wind project will be representative of the subsidies for rebid or new projects selected. $2 million per job year. So for each job every year, it's costing them $2 million in subsidies. Although we're going to create jobs. At what cost? Right? Eventually, the this is a chart here, this table here. You got Revolution Wind, South Fork Wind. This is Vineyard Wind. They got the PPA subsidy, millions per year, in millions per year. ITC subsidies in millions per year, per job year, in millions per job year. Total subsidies in millions per job year for Revolution Wind. $1.5 million per year. South Fork, $2.5 million per year. Vineyard, $1.5 million per year. Eventually, the profligate spending, I'm not even sure what that word is. Eventually, the profligate spending on costly but low-value offshore wind generation will collapse under its own economic weight. The key unanswered question is this: how high an economic and social price will the United States, and especially coastal states, pay for this folly before that occurs? Well, per James Wilson, that's a question, right? How much spending? It's going to collapse. It's going to collapse under its own weight. It's got to collapse under its own weight. I mean, eventually, it's going to collapse under its own weight, which I would argue the whole Keynesian economic system was designed to do to begin with. That's what the Great Reset's all about. Well, when that frickin' crash, when that frickin' collapse under its own weight happens, that's what the Great Reset is there for. The World Economic Forum and the public-private partnerships and the whole capture of the world that they're going to have with this. Our founders warned us. And before I go into this a little bit here, our founders warned us, and I've got this thing from James Wilson. This is when he defended, is one of our founding fathers, and when he defended our Constitution in 1787, out of that speech, which I would recommend, you read any of the Federalists. He's not in the actual Federalist Papers, but he was a Federalist. He was defending the Constitution, and in 1787 to a speech to the Pennsylvania Convention. Just a quip out of this to tell you where we are and where we've come from. Perhaps some politicians who has not considered with sufficient accuracy the political system which would answer that in our government the supreme power was vested in the Constitution. This opinion approaches a step nearer to the truth but does not reach it. The truth is that in our government, the supreme, absolute, and uncontrollable power remains in the people. As our constitutions are superior to our legislators, so the people are superior to our Constitution. Right? The people are superior to our Constitution. Indeed, the superiority in this last instance is much greater. For the people possess over our constitutions control in act as well as in right. The consequence is that the people may change the constitutions whenever and however they please. That is a right of which no positive institution can ever deprive them. It is a right. We have power over the Constitution itself. That's what the whole Bill of Rights is kind of, the Bill of Rights itself is, just a reiteration that the government doesn't have the power to our rights are unalienable. They cannot put any lien on our rights. They're out of the jurisdiction of any positive agency or positive institution, as James Wilson is saying here. Right? If we have power over the whole Constitution, then the powers limiting government within the Constitution itself, the people are above that. They have power over that. They have rights to the power over that are outside the jurisdiction of government. They're unalienable. This is how far we've come from our founding principles. I don't even know if there's a lot of people out there that can even grasp the concept of the people having power over not just government, but over the Constitution that ordains the government. Right. Our power over the Constitution is much greater, for the people possess over the Constitution's control and act as well as right. The consequence is that the people may change the constitutions whenever and however they please. This is a right of which no positive institution can ever be deprived of. Be deprived of. We cannot be deprived by any positive institution of these rights. Oft I have viewed with silent pleasure and admiration the force and prevalence in this principle through the United States, that the supreme power resides in the people, and that they never part with it. It may be called the panacea in politics. There can be no disorder in the community, but may here receive a radical cure. If the error be in the legislator, it may be corrected by the Constitution. If in the Constitution, it may be corrected by the people. There is a remedy, therefore, in every distemper in government, if the people are not wanting to themselves. This is the thing, if we are not wanting to ourselves. But once we've obtain the collectivist mindset from which we want from the government, from which we receive from the government, from which we have a birthright to be provided things from the government, right? It's a collectivist mindset. It's the cancer, the disease that has entered the American mindset. And this is from the departure from our founding principles right here. There is a remedy, therefore, for every distemper in government if the people are not wanting to themselves. For a people wanting to themselves, there is no remedy. From their power as we have seen, there is no appeal. To their error, there is no superior principle of correction. Once we've become a people wanting for ourselves, we will destroy our own republic. And we've done that. And now all they got to do is put it out there that they're spending all this money, that we're giving you all this, that, and the other thing. We've become a people wanting for ourselves. This is where we have come. The departure from our founding principles. Just putting that out there for your consideration, and another light in which to see the destruction and the continued destruction of our republic by the colossal amount of spending that these projects, these agendas are doing to us. You know, just putting it out there. Now we get up here on these kilowatt hours. Okay, we got these kilowatt hour, money per kilowatt hour. Where were we? $6,700 per kilowatt hour, $5,300 per kilowatt hour, $7,800 per kilowatt hour, up to $10,000 per kilowatt hour in actual real cost for offshore wind, right? Well, down here, I wanted you to take a look at and compare. Now compare that the calculated cost of 6,000 kilowatt hours and 10 between somewhere. Are you okay? Yeah. Okay, somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 per kilowatt hour for offshore wind energy produced. To what advocates have been trying to say, these renewables and jobs, they say that they are to create, if they even produce these jobs, right? Is between 6,000, right? They've determined the cost to be between $6,000 and $10,000 per kilowatt hour. But I want you to keep in mind that 1 megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. And we go to the next chart here. A search for Department of Energy and Energy Information Agency research from 2019 provides the following nationwide average levelized cost per megawatt hour for different energy sources. This is Fossil Fuel Consulting Service put this out right here. They put out these costs in 2019. This is back from 2019, but they put coal at 76 per megawatt, natural gas at 66 per megawatt, wind 40, offshore wind at 122, or that would break it down if you have 1,000 kilowatts per megawatt, that's 12.2 cents per kilowatt. They're saying that offshore wind is going to be 12.2 cents per kilowatt hour of energy. That's what my math has it at. Compare that to the $6,000 to $10,000 per kilowatt versus the 12.2 cents per kilowatt. That's what I'm seeing. The discrepancy is I don't know. It's huge. I just wanted to point that out. We got more on renewable cost scam, Financial Post. This came out in April 2024. Bjorn Longburn, why solar and wind power aren't winning. Let me see what we got here. I'm going to pick this up. Mini P has just about had it here. Mini P has just about had it here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Say hi. Come here. Come here. Come here. Tell him. Tell him. Tell him you just about had it with this. Tell him. You tell him. You tell him we just about had it with this shit. We're all done. We're all done. We done. We done. What do you think? Is there? That's right. That's right. That's right. Anyways, we're gonna pick it up from here in the next show. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you got something out of it. And we look forward to seeing you on the next Liberty Perspective. Thank you. I'm Joe Marshall.